Elijah McClain was 5'6" and weighed 140 pounds. I'm Fred Goss, and this is What's Left. 3 police officers approached Elijah, acting on a 911 call from someone saying they saw a guy leaving the 7-Eleven who looked sketchy. That's Karen code for he's black and wearing a ski mask. If only he'd been walking home from 7-Eleven during the pandemic. Wearing the face mask would have been considered compliant with federal guidelines. By the way, how about when someone calls 911 basically because they saw a black person walking, and the cops come and they kill that person, the 911 caller is put up for charges as well. As the cops were executing a particular type of chokehold, actually designed to render the suspect unconscious due to restriction of blood to the brain, you can hear this young man repeating his full name. My name is Elijah McClain. Please don't kill me. Ask me what I was doing. I was just going home. I'm an introvert and I'm different. I'm just different. He's sobbing at this point, and you can hear the disbelief in his voice that they are actually doing this to him. To him, Elijah McClain. I've watched this video and I can't believe it either. I look at these assholes. They claimed that Elijah, 5'6" and 140 pounds, was incredibly strong and fighting them. He wasn't. He was trying to explain to them that they must be making a terrible mistake. He was Elijah McClain and he was just trying to get home. Within the next few months, we are going to see dozens of recent cases that precede the death of George Floyd, come to light. Cases that would never have come to light because they were already buried by complicit DA offices tied to the specific police departments in question. When I first watched the George Floyd video, probably within a few hours after it had been made public, I wept. I remember thinking, this is just too much. The hell of this damn pandemic that didn't have to explode in the way that it did. I'd been isolated for well over 2 months and understood that although many states were preparing to reopen, we were likely just on chapter 2 of a very thick book. Like Michener thick, you know? I watched that shithead kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck with his hands in his pockets. I fantasized about being there and running to my car for a tire iron and coming up behind him and separating his head from his shoulders. I've never seen anything more disturbing than the murder in real time of George Floyd. And then I saw the murder of Elijah McClain, and I wept. I'm unable to rewatch it, but I don't have to. I'll never unhear that delightful young man's plea to these fucking monsters. I'm Elijah McClain. I'm different. Please don't kill me. I meant to do what you asked. I can't breathe. I've since seen footage of this young man playing his violin for stray cats because he felt it calmed them. He was different. The good kind of different. The different that makes a person memorable. Maybe he was a bit on the spectrum. He was clean-cut and slight. He was about as intimidating as, well, me. Or if I were to compare him to another black man, say, Prince, or a young Don Cheadle. He wasn't intimidating, is what I'm trying to say. He was carrying a couple of cans of iced tea and singing to whatever was playing on his headphones, and he had a bounce in his step. I just don't understand. Here's the deal. It's not a few bad apples, folks. There are a sizable amount of cops in this country who are racist. There is written and unwritten protocol with regards to dealing with black men while out on the beat. Now we all know why they call it the beat. I've long felt that to protect and serve should be removed from cop cars. To my experience, I felt it should say, to harass and annoy. I'd add to that now, to harass and annoy if you're white. I've encountered a few sincere cops. Polite, just doing their job. But even as a white man growing up, most that I encountered were testosterone-fueled, heavily armed bros who leveraged the fact that they had the law on their side to get away with being complete and total cunts. But I never considered the possibility that they might just kill me. I've never considered that. Yes, my head is splitting and I'm out of Advil, but it's 12:30 a.m. and that drive to Walgreens. Is this headache worth risking my life over? Because that shit is real. It's been real in this country since there were cops and since black men and women were freed. You know, from slavery. People 40 and older no longer get to complain about smartphones and how before they were around, people talked to each other more and blah, blah, blah. Thank fucking God that every man, woman, and child has a camera attached to a phone that's attached to their hand. Keep shooting. Where there is injustice, keep shooting. The cops keep shooting. Fair is fair. There are a few things that need to change as soon as humanly possible in this country. Prisons should no longer be private sector. The whole point is to live in a society where there are as few people imprisoned as possible. That's what a winning society looks like. The cops should be defunded. Not necessarily unfunded, but defunded. Opponents to this notion don't understand it. Less funds for cops will make a lot more sense when we dismantle the structure of policing in this country completely. A structure unaltered pretty much since cops were invented. England's got it right. The cops on the street are unarmed. Yes. While we defund, let's also de-arm the police. They can't be trusted with weapons. They've had their chance. The vast majority of people they approach are unarmed. Whatever business they have with someone they are detaining who is also unarmed should never involve killing them. Cops shouldn't be dispatched to deal with the mentally ill. We also need to end the war on drugs. Guess what? You lost. You lost that war years ago. Drug use has never gone down in all the years since that war began. It exists for the same reason the military-industrial complex demands that we are always at war to one degree or another. Money. We don't need to throw $700 billion every year at the national defense budget. We do it because the towns that manufacture the tools of war would prefer those jobs didn't go away. It's sick. If we declared drugs legal, look at all those good people who would lose their jobs. Look at all those cartel members that would lose their jobs. If we suddenly took the teeth out of buying, selling, and doing drugs, look at how the corporate structures that own prisons would suffer financially with all those suddenly empty cells sitting around. If 1 in 3 black men couldn't look forward to being incarcerated in this country, what would they do? Where would they go? College? Yeah. They'd go to the park with their kids and throw a ball around. They'd go to college. Here's the real kicker. We need to redistribute the wealth in this country and make reparations to black Americans who have been denied loans for housing due to redlining and other not talked about business practices designed to keep them down. We wouldn't need to concern ourselves so much about improving the public schools in the inner cities if we no longer relegated and shoved black Americans into substandard scenarios separate from the areas where we white people want to be. Redistribute the wealth. Anyone making more than $1 billion should be required to take anything that they've acquired over $1 billion and toss it into the community chest. Because I can guarantee you, nobody worth billions made those billions by playing by the rules. It's not possible. Oh, and let's also cut out the "we're not socialist" bullshit in this country. Let's provide free health care, free schooling, free college, food programs that everyone can tap into to ensure that the 18 million American children that go to bed hungry every night in this country don't. Corporate America has run amok for over 30 years now. The federal government has been corrupt and absolutely impotent for so long. It's a total do-over. No more lobbyists, term limits, token salaries for everyone in the Capitol building. It shouldn't be a career. It should be a public service, like 2 years in the Israeli army and just out of high school. Do it and move on. It's insane that the government is supposed to be there for the citizens of this country. They're the only ones who it isn't there for. The average citizen has no voice because he's the only one who can't afford a fucking lobbyist. It's insane, and it's enough. It would be great if people who didn't really give a fuck, like Trump, would refrain from saying things like, "I'll bet George would be proud of what's going on." That's horse shit. George and Elijah would rather be alive. They're dead. They don't know what's going on now because they're gone. They were murdered. Enacting change at long last isn't for them because it's too late for that. It's for us. Because to quote Joseph Welch, who ended McCarthyism by asking Tail Gunner Joe before a listening world, "Have you no sense of decency, sir, at long last? Have you no sense of decency?" This is it. This can't happen anymore. And yet, statistically, 2 black people die at the hands of cops every week in this country. So even though it absolutely cannot happen again, it very likely will. Have we no decency? Have we no shame? The solutions are not a mystery. White rule is over. Cut it out. What are you afraid of? Retribution? To my experience, if we were all suddenly on a level playing field, black people wouldn't enact revenge. That's something white people do. Like Reverend Sharpton said, "Take your knee off our neck so we can breathe." We don't want favors. Just get up off us, and we can be and do whatever we can be. I'm Fred Goss, and this is what's left.